I was 24 years old when I walked into Dr. Claire Bennett's office for the first time, and I had no idea that woman would completely unravel everything I thought I knew about love, about desire, about myself. Hey, I'm speaking to you from California. Drop a comment and let me know what city you're watching from, because I love knowing where my story reaches. I went to therapy because I thought I needed fixing. My life looked perfect on paper. Good job at a tech startup, nice apartment in the city, friends who seemed to have it all figured out. But inside, I felt like I was sleepwalking through my own existence. My girlfriend at the time kept saying I was emotionally unavailable, and maybe she was right. I didn't know how to feel things deeply anymore. Everything was surface level, just going through the motions. The receptionist led me down a quiet hallway to the last door on the left. When it opened, Claire stood there, and I remember thinking she looked nothing like what I'd expected. She was 50 years old, though I didn't know that then. What I noticed was the way she carried herself, this quiet confidence that filled the room before she even spoke. She wore a simple cream-colored blouse and dark slacks, professional but somehow warm. Her smile was gentle, reassuring, the kind that made you feel like maybe everything would actually be okay. Those first few sessions were exactly what you'd expect. I sat on her gray couch while she sat across from me in a leather chair, a small table between us with a box of tissues I was too proud to use. I talked about work stress, about my relationship problems, about feeling disconnected. She listened in this way that made me feel truly heard for the first time in years. She'd ask questions that cut right through my defenses, questions I didn't even know I needed to answer. But somewhere around the fourth or fifth session, something shifted. I can't point to the exact moment, but I started noticing things I shouldn't have been noticing. The way her eyes crinkled slightly when she smiled. How her voice dropped lower when she was being particularly thoughtful. The graceful way her hands moved when she spoke, like she was conducting an invisible orchestra of ideas. I found myself looking forward to our sessions in a way that had nothing to do with therapy. I remember one afternoon, maybe 2 months in, when I was telling her about my ex. We'd broken up by then, and how I felt relieved more than sad. Claire leaned forward slightly, and she said something that stopped me cold. She said, "Michael, I don't think you've ever let yourself feel the kind of connection you're actually capable of. You're protecting yourself from something that hasn't even happened yet." The way she looked at me when she said it, there was something there. Something that lasted just a second too long. Or maybe I imagined it. I told myself I imagined it. But I started catching these moments, these tiny fractures in the professional distance between us. A pause that felt heavy with unspoken words. The way her breath caught slightly when I said something particularly vulnerable. How sometimes, when our sessions ended, neither of us would move to stand up right away. I knew it was wrong to feel what I was feeling. She was my therapist. She was older. There were boundaries, ethical lines that existed for good reasons. But the heart doesn't care about ethics, does it? It doesn't care about age or appropriateness, or what other people might think. It just feels what it feels, and what I felt for Claire was growing stronger every single week. One evening, during a late session, she sometimes saw clients until 7. A storm rolled in. The rain was coming down, so hard you could barely see through the windows. I've been talking about loneliness, about how I could be surrounded by people and still feel completely alone. When I finished, Claire was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, very softly, "I know exactly what you mean." There was something in her voice, something personal and raw that she'd never let through before. I looked up at her, really looked at her, and I saw it. She was lonely too. This woman who seemed so together, so self-assured, carried her own private ache. Without thinking, I asked, "Do you?" "Really?" She shouldn't have answered. A good therapist would have redirected, would have turned it back to me. But Claire looked out at the rain and said, "Yes, I do." Then she caught herself, seemed to remember where we were, and shifted back into professional mode. But the door had opened, just a crack, and we both knew it. I started staying later after sessions, just a few extra minutes. We'd talk about books, about music, about nothing important and everything important all at once. She told me about her love of old jazz records, how she played them on Sunday mornings with coffee. I told her about my grandfather who raised me, who taught me that real strength was in gentleness. These conversations felt dangerous and necessary all at once. The tension between us became almost unbearable. I'd sit on that couch, and every cell in my body would be aware of her presence across from me. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, something between concern and something else entirely. Once, when I was leaving, my hand brushed against hers as I reached for the door, and the electricity of that simple touch stayed with me for days. I knew I should stop coming. I knew this was heading somewhere it couldn't go, but I couldn't stop. She'd become the most important hour of my week, the thing I built my days around. And I was pretty sure, even though neither of us said it, that she felt the same way. There was this charge in the air whenever we were together, this magnetic pull that we were both fighting against. Then came the session that changed everything. I'd had a rough week, some family stuff that brought up a lot of old pain about my mother leaving when I was young. I broke down in a way I never had before, tears I'd been holding back for years finally coming out. Claire moved from her chair to sit beside me on the couch, something she'd never done before. And she put her hand on my shoulder, just that simple gesture of comfort, but it felt like coming home. When I finally looked up at her, her face was so close to mine. I could see the concern in her eyes, but I could see something else too, something she'd been hiding just as carefully as I had. The air between us felt thick, charged with everything we weren't saying. Her hand was still on my shoulder, and neither of us moved. We stayed like that, frozen in this moment that felt suspended outside of time. She pulled back first, standing up quickly, putting distance between us. "Michael," she said, and her voice was shaking slightly. "I think we need to talk about something." My heart was pounding. I thought she was going to tell me I couldn't come back, that I needed to find another therapist. Instead, she said, "I don't think I can be your therapist anymore." The words hung in the air between us. I stood up, my legs feeling unsteady. "What do you mean?" Claire turned to look at me, and I'd never seen her look so vulnerable. "I mean that I've crossed a line in my own mind. I've developed feelings that are completely inappropriate for a therapist to have for a client. I've been struggling with this for weeks now, and I can't continue to see you professionally when I feel." She stopped, took a breath. "When I feel the way I feel about you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman I'd been torturing myself over, this connection I thought might be completely one-sided, was standing there confessing that she felt it too. "Claire," I said, and it was the first time I'd said her first name out loud in her presence. It felt intimate, forbidden. "I've been falling for you since the second month I started coming here. I thought I was going crazy." She laughed, but it was a sad sound. "You're not crazy. But this is impossible, Michael. Even if I'm no longer your therapist, there are ethical considerations. You came to me for help, and I've let my own feelings compromise that. And then there's the age difference. I'm old enough to be your mother. You're not my mother," I said firmly. "And I don't care about the age difference. I care about how I feel when I'm with you. I care about the conversations we have, about how you see me in a way no one else ever has. I care that you make me want to be more emotionally honest, more present, more alive." She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were glistening. "This is so complicated." "The best things usually are," I said. We stood there in her office as the rain continued outside, and everything hung in the balance. Finally, Claire said, "I need to refer you to another therapist. That's non-negotiable. You came to me for help, and you deserve to get the support you need from someone who can maintain professional boundaries." "Okay," I agreed. "And then what?" She looked at me for a long moment. "And then we see what this is. If it's real, or if it's just something that developed in the unique intensity of a therapeutic relationship. But we do it carefully, Michael. We do it honestly. That was 3 months ago." Claire did refer me to another therapist, a kind older gentleman who's been helping me work through my actual issues. And Claire and I started seeing each other, slowly and carefully, like two people walking on ice they're not sure will hold them. Those first real dates felt both strange and completely natural. We'd go to quiet restaurants where we could talk for hours or walk through the city at night, just being together outside the confines of her office. She told me about her marriage that had ended 5 years before, about how she'd thrown herself into her work to avoid dealing with her own loneliness. I told her about my fear of intimacy, about how being with her was teaching me what real connection actually felt like. The age difference that seemed like such an obstacle at first became irrelevant pretty quickly. Yes, we got looks sometimes when we were out together. Yes, there were people who made assumptions or judgments. But when we were alone, none of that mattered. Claire had this wisdom and groundedness that came from living more life. But she also had this playfulness, this capacity for joy that made me feel young in the best way. And I seemed to bring out something in her too, a lightness, an openness to possibility that she said she'd forgotten she could feel. The first time we really kissed, we were at her place on a Saturday evening. She'd made dinner, something simple but delicious, and we were sitting on her couch listening to one of those jazz records she loved. John Coltrane, I think. The music was soft and melancholy, and we'd been talking about nothing in particular when our eyes met, and everything else just fell away. She cupped my face with both hands, her touch gentle and deliberate, and kissed me in a way that felt like a question and an answer all at once. It wasn't rushed or frantic. It was deep and slow and full of all the longing we'd both been holding back. When we finally pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine and whispered, "I've wanted to do that for so long." "Me too," I said. Every single session, I'd sit there trying not to think about what it would be like to kiss you. She laughed, that genuine, unguarded laugh I'd learned to love. Those were the same sessions where I'd be trying to maintain professional composure while my heart was racing just from being in the same room with you. Being intimate with Claire wasn't like anything I'd experienced before. There was no performance, no pressure to be anything other than exactly who we were. She knew herself in a way that only comes with time and experience, and she helped me learn myself too. Our connection was emotional first, and that made everything else feel deeper, more meaningful. Every touch was a conversation. Every moment together felt precious because we both understood how rare this kind of connection really was. But it hasn't been simple. Claire struggled with guilt for a long time about how we started. She worried she'd taken advantage of me somehow, even though I kept reassuring her that wasn't true. She'd wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, anxious about the ethics of it all, about what her colleagues would think if they knew. I had to be patient with her, had to help her see that what we had wasn't wrong. It was just unexpected, and I had my own struggles too. There were moments when I felt insecure about her past, about all the experiences she'd had that I hadn't. She'd been married, had a full career, had lived a whole life before I even finished college. Sometimes I wondered if I was enough for her, if I could really give her what she needed. But she'd always reassure me, always remind me that love isn't about matching resumes. It's about meeting each other where you are and growing together from there. My friends had mixed reactions when I told them about Claire. Some were supportive, genuinely happy to see me more alive and present than I'd been in years. Others were skeptical, made jokes about older woman and younger man dynamics, about whether this was some kind of phase for both of us. One friend straight up asked me if I had some kind of complex about mother figures, which pissed me off because that wasn't what this was at all. But I understood their concern. From the outside, it probably did look unusual. Claire's friends were even more complicated. Some of them supported her, told her it was about time she found someone who made her happy again. But others worried she was setting herself up for heartbreak, that I'd eventually want someone my own age, someone who could give her things she couldn't anymore. Those comments hurt her more than she let on. I could see it in her eyes when she'd brush them off, pretending they didn't matter. But here's what I learned through all of this. Real connection doesn't care about age or what's conventional or what other people think. When you find someone who sees you, really sees you, and reflects back the best version of yourself. When you find someone whose presence makes you want to be more honest, more vulnerable, more alive, you hold on to that. Because it's rare. So rare. I'm 25 now, and Claire is 51. We've been together for almost a year, if you count from that rainy evening when everything changed. We don't know what the future holds. We talk about it sometimes, about the practical realities of our age difference, about what it might mean down the road. But mostly we just focus on being present with each other, on building something real in the now. She's taught me so much about emotional maturity, about being patient with myself and others, about the difference between intensity and actual intimacy. I think I've taught her things too, about taking risks, about not letting fear keep you from joy, about the fact that it's never too late to be surprised by love. People ask me sometimes if I'm worried about what happens when she gets older, when the age gap becomes more visible. Honestly, I'm not, because what we have isn't based on appearances or surface-level stuff. It's based on understanding, on genuine care, on a connection that goes soul deep. That doesn't age. That doesn't fade. What started in a therapist's office, this forbidden, impossible thing, has become the most real relationship of my life. Not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. Because we both chose it knowing all the complications, knowing all the reasons we probably shouldn't. We chose it anyway. Sometimes I think about that first session, about how lost I felt walking into her office. I went looking for someone to help me fix what was broken inside me. What I found instead was someone who showed me I wasn't broken at all. I just hadn't found the right person to be whole with yet. Claire didn't fix me. She met me exactly where I was and loved me there. And that gave me the courage to become more of who I really am. I know this story isn't conventional. I know there are people who'll judge us, who'll never understand what we have. But when I'm lying next to her in the early morning, when the sun is just starting to come through the curtains and she's still sleeping peacefully beside me, I feel this profound gratitude. Gratitude that I walked into her office that day. Gratitude that we were both brave enough to acknowledge what we felt, even when it was terrifying. Gratitude that love found us, even when we weren't looking for it in each other. The truth is, age gap romance isn't about numbers. It's not about older woman or younger man, or any of those labels people put on it. It's about two people finding something real in a world full of superficial connections. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's complicated. It's about building something meaningful that transcends all the reasons it shouldn't work. Claire tells me sometimes that I've given her back a part of herself she thought was gone forever. She says I make her feel young, not in a way that's about denying her age, but in a way that's about remembering how to be open to possibility. And she's given me something I didn't even know I was missing, a model for what love can be when it's based on true understanding, when it's deep enough to weather anything. We still get stares sometimes when we're out together. We still face questions and doubts from people who don't understand. But we've built something between us that's stronger than outside judgment. We've created our own world where what matters is how we feel when we're together, the life we're building day by day, the love that grows deeper with every conversation, every shared moment, every time we choose each other again. I don't know where this story ends. Maybe that's the point. The best love stories don't really end. They just keep unfolding, surprising you, teaching you things you didn't know you needed to learn. All I know is that I walked into Claire Bennett's office looking for therapy, and I found something I didn't even know I was searching for. I found someone who changed everything I thought I knew about love, about connection, about what's possible when you're brave enough to break the rules everyone else follows without questioning. So, this is my confession. I fell in love with my therapist. She was 50, I was 24. What started as sessions became something neither of us planned. something that scared us both, something that turned out to be the most real thing either of us had ever experienced. And I wouldn't change a single moment of how it happened, because it led me here, to a love that proves that true connection knows no age, no boundaries, nothing except the courage to feel what you feel and honor it, even when the whole world tells you not to. That's my story. That's how forbidden love turned into real love. That's how the most inappropriate feeling became the most right thing in my life. So here's my question for you. Do you believe age can really stand in the way of true love? Have you ever felt a connection with someone that society said wasn't right, but your heart knew was real? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing your stories. If this story touched you in any way, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And make sure you turn on that notification bell, because I share new stories of love every single day. Stories that prove love has no age limit, no expiration date, no rules except the ones two people create together. Remember, real love doesn't ask permission. It just shows up and changes everything. And sometimes, the most unexpected connection turns out to be exactly what you needed all along. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep believing in love that breaks all the rules.